Hello and welcome into Devils in Detail headquarters here at the beautiful Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Hunter Robinson, and on this week's show we're talking men's and women's basketball, hockey, and football, so let's get started. The women's basketball team has hit a tough stretch as of late. After starting Pac-12 play 4-1, they've lost 2 of their past 3, dropping tough-fought games against Washington and Stanford, but picking up a win against California this past Friday. We now bring in Leah Soto and Gigi McKetty to discuss what's gone wrong for the women as of late. So, Leah, I'll go ahead and start with you. The seniors on this team lead this team. They are the heart of this team. If the seniors have a good game, then it seems that the whole team in general has a good game. But ever since Kelsey Moose's injury, they've seemed to not been the same. What sort of impact have you seen from that injury?
Well, the team really has only lost 2 games since Kelsey Moose's injury, but they have had some struggles defensively. And I think that Kelsey Moose's seniority really brings a sense of leadership. And without that leadership, the team doesn't really seem to know what to be doing on the court. And I think that without her, they really struggle in that lane.
So, Gigi, like I just mentioned, the seniors are the heart of this team, but the freshman class has really seemed to step up. What have you seen from this freshman class?
Well, Riley Richardson does an amazing job. She just carries herself with such poise and is able to drive into the paint and just be an aggressive player and do a great job and control the team. Robbie Ryan, she stepped up a lot, especially against Cal. She was able to bring the team through and get the win.
So, Gigi just talked about it, this strong freshman class, but one freshman in particular, Riley Richardson. What have you seen from her, Leah?
Riley Richardson has been amazing as far as her leadership skills. It's really incredible to see somebody so young be so great at getting the ball moving, making plays, making sure everybody, gets the ball and just distributing in general. She has 77 assists on the season, which is 30 more than the next player on the team, which is just incredible. And even the coach has just raved about how great she's been doing this season in the leadership position. And she's also been doing really well with scoring, and she's the 3rd highest scoring player on the team, which is pretty great. So she's not only is she making sure that everybody else is scoring, but she's also making sure to contribute herself.
So, Gigi, what are your expectations for this second half of Pac-12 play, as it seems that they're really going to have to go on a run in order to finish atop of the Pac-12?
Unfortunately, it's going to be a tough second half of the season. They've already struggled a little bit with Cal, but thankfully they were able to pull off the win. And then Stanford, they fell to them, and it was just a hard loss. Teams like Washington, they're not going to be easy on them. And teams seem to be figuring out their game plan, just hitting Quinn Dornstadter in the paint for some easy layups. But they're going to have to work the perimeter and really be able to sink their shots.
All right, well, we'll have to see if they can indeed finish the season strong. Thank you to both for joining me. The men's basketball team has hit a skid as of late. They have lost their last 4 games, and they don't seem to be getting much better as we get deeper into Pac-12 play. They're coming off a loss against USC, where they started off slow but made a late push to try and force the game to overtime. They ended up losing by 3, 82-79. I'm now joined by Aliana Harina and Zach Bacale to discuss the Sun Devils' recent struggles and what the outlook for them is moving forward. Thank you to both for joining me. So, Aliana, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. So, this backcourt tandem of Trey Holder and Torian Graham have been the centerpiece of Bobby Hurley's offensive game plan, defensive game plan, his whole game plan in general all season. How do you think they've risen to this challenge?
Well, it's no surprise that Trey Holder is definitely the leader in the team. He's putting up points. He's averaging 17 points a game as of right now. He's well in distributing the ball. And on top of that, he has an ability to draw fouls. And in college basketball, being called as tightly as it is, being able to get to the line and making those free throws, which he's been shooting at 77% from the line, it's crucial to ASU's offense. And with Torian Graham, he's been a spark for ASU for the entire season. He started off coming off the bench, and even then he was a huge spark. It was kind of almost contagious to the rest of the team too. So with him averaging 18 points a game and shooting 82% from the free throw line, it's no surprise that Trey Holder and Torian Graham are kind of the top 2 offensive options for ASU.
All right, so Zach, talk to me about this team's struggles on the road this season. What has been the biggest problem when it comes to these road games?
I really don't know what it is exactly that this team really is doing wrong. The biggest takeaway I could take from this is this team struggles to get started early in games, particularly against Arizona. I mean, after the game, Trey Holder told the reporters that they took a long time to get their feet wet. Against a team like Arizona, you play in the Pac-12, that's not the only good team you're going to play. They don't have that much time. Game's only 40 minutes. If you're waiting 7-8 minutes to get into a game, it's over by that point. They're down 20 points. I commend the effort for them to fight, but it's just not good enough.
Aliana, the 2017 recruiting class, it's looking pretty decent for ASU. What are you expecting for them come next season?
Well, it's no surprise that Bobby Hurley has talent for bringing in talent. I mean, with the past couple of seasons, he's had 4-star recruits. And I think that it's no different for the 2017 recruiting class. He's been able to bring in Kimani Lawrence, who's going to be huge for ASU. He's going to add size to the perimeter, even just a little bit. And with him being one of the nation's top small forwards and with being one of the nation's top small forwards, he's really going to add to ASU's offense. And also with Remy Martin, we know that Bobby Hurley, guards flourish under Bobby Hurley, and you can see that with Shannon Evans and even Sam Cunliffe earlier into the season before his transfer. So I think for him, being in that culture that Bobby Hurley's been trying to implement at ASU, it's going to be huge as well. And with Kenny Witten coming in as well, I think that that's going to add to the size that ASU has obviously been lacking.
So, Zach, how do you think that this team will perform this week going up against Washington and Washington State?
Well, I'd be surprised if this team does not pull off a sweep at home this weekend. Washington's very much like the Sun Devils. They run a very up-tempo attack. They don't rely too much on their defense. They try to just outscore and hope that the other team doesn't put up as many points. But they're a one-trick pony. Markelle Fultz is a treat to watch. He'll absolutely be a top 10 pick in the draft this summer. But I don't think, if you can contain Fultz, there's no reason they shouldn't win that game. And the same thing with Washington State. Josh Hawkinson's a great offensive rebounder, great defensive rebounder. They clog the paint, and that's where they do most of their damage. So working so much inside, it's going to give ASU an opportunity to attack on the perimeter where they dominate, shooting a lot of threes, getting a lot of open looks.
So, Aliana, looking ahead to the second half of this season, how do you see them faring in, the Pac-12?
As much as I'd like to give them a middle spot, I just can't, and call me cynical, but I think it's realistic to give them maybe 8th or 9th in the Pac-12, maybe above Oregon State, Washington. But I think that, ASU's got tremendous shooting ability, but at the end of the day, against teams like UCLA and Oregon, Arizona, even Utah, that's not going to be enough, especially with their lack of presence in the front court.
And then finally, Zach, while this season may not be the best for ASU, the front court is young and it has a lot of potential. What have you seen out of them this season that gives you hope for the future?
Well, in very, very limited minutes, Ramon Vila and Jethro Tashumpa have both really shown that they are the future for Sun Devil basketball in the front court. Obi Aleka graduates, so next year they're really going to be thrown into the fire of the Pac-12. But Tashumpa has already broken Jordan Baczynski's all-time freshman block record. So at this rate, he's on pace to shatter his school record. And Vila, while he has taken some time to adjust to the speed of American basketball after he played at the Barcelona Academy, he really has started to develop a nice low post game. And you're starting to see a new level of aggression when he goes after the ball. It's very promising for Hurley to have two guys that will eventually develop into big-time players for him.
Well, guys, we'll have to see if the Sun Devils can come out on top and right the ship this weekend against two teams that possess some real talent. Thank you two for joining me. The ASU hockey team has had a crazy season. After starting out the season facing ranked opponent after ranked opponent, they got a break in the Desert Hockey Classic at the end of 2016. Unfortunately for the Sun Devils, they were unable to capitalize on the opportunity in front of them as they ended up tying against Brown University and then losing against St. Cloud State. But the Sun Devils have turned it around as of late, sweeping the Southern New Hampshire Penmen and setting a new program record with 11 goals scored in one game. We now bring in Nicholas Batters and Ethan Schmidt to discuss the recent success of the team. So, Nick, you were at both games this past weekend. How do you explain that series and what it means for this program?
Well, I think that series was huge for the program because they outscored the Penmen 15-1. The last time they had a scoring differential that big, it was against the Penmen back in 2015 when they outscored them 16-3. Now, we have to keep in mind that Southern New Hampshire. They are a D3 school. They've been playing D2 teams, but they're still a D3 school. That being said, this has to be a huge confidence boost for ASU. They've played a lot of tough teams this year, and getting a little break in their schedule, I have to imagine, is nice. And the team was just looking really sharp out there. They had an 11-0 win on Friday and then a 4-1 win on Saturday. A lot of things were going right for them in that series, and I have to imagine that makes it easier to close out the season.
And then Ethan, 9 different Sun Devils scored a goal this past weekend against the Penmen. What does that say about this team's offense?
Well, Hunter, coming in, they so many players scored this weekend. It was amazing to see. But yeah, it says that the offense is clicking, and the Sun Devils are starting to figure out their game on the ice. Just really coming out, playing faster, and getting more shots on goal. That's huge for them because they want to compete with these top-ranked teams in the NCAA. One thing I noticed, 8 of those 9 players that scored were sophomores or freshmen. So this team's young, and they're gaining confidence right away, right now, starting to develop as a team. And the Sun Devils are now close to averaging 3 goals a game. So the offense is definitely starting to come up, and it should be a positive thing moving forward.
So, Nick, what happened this weekend? Would you account that more to the Penmen simply coming into Tempe at the wrong time? Or do you think that maybe head coach Greg Powers, front-loading the schedule of all these ridiculously hard teams is finally paying off?
I think it's a really good combination of both, actually, because like you said, it's been a tough schedule for the Sun Devils all season long. They've played 28 games. 17 of them have been against ranked opponents. They recently played Ohio State, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and that was a really tough series. And while it was a tough series, they tied that second game and then won in a shootout, and I think that confidence brought a lot into this series against Southern New Hampshire that gave the Devils that extra edge to give them an 11-0 win, which is big for the program considering that they had never scored more than 8 goals in a game this season, or 9 in program history. So I think the fact that they were coming off a really good game against Ohio State, and they've just been getting that experience playing really, really tough opponents and tough ranked opponents, I think that makes the games against the D2, D3 schools that much easier.
So then, Ethan, ASU's goalkeeper, Robert Levin, he has been hot as of late, but he is a senior. So who can this program turn to after he graduates?
Yeah, Hunter, Robert Levin is on fire right now. He's played 12 games this season with the Sun Devils, 5-4-2 record. He's nearing a 900 save percentage now, and only allowing around 3 goals per game. But yeah, he is a senior, so the Sun Devils need to start thinking about what they're going to do next season and the future to follow. Obviously, they have Rylan Pashovitz, who's going to be a junior next season. They'll look to him and give him some playing time. But then there's also a sophomore to be Joey Decord, who is an Ottawa Senators draft pick. He seems to have done pretty well this season, hasn't played as much as Pashovitz and Levin at times, but I think the Sun Devils have a good future with these 2 young goaltenders, and especially I look to Decord being an NHL draft pick. That's huge. He needs to start showing his potential and what he's made of because he's going to be moving on to the NHL. I'm sure he hopes to. So they'll probably look into him and maybe pick up maybe a walk-on or get a late recruit going forward.
All right, so Nick, while ASU can feel good about this series, they go right back to having a tough little stretch. What should they expect from these opponents that they're going to be facing?
So what they're going to expect tough games. The next 2 opponents that they play, Quinnipiac and Western Michigan, they're both ranked. Quinnipiac is ranked 17th in the country. Western Michigan is ranked 13th. Now, they have a lot of experience playing against ranked opponents this season, like I mentioned, 17 games, and their record is 9-17-2. So of the 17 games they've played against ranked opponents, they've only had 2 games that haven't been losses, a win against the Air Force in the beginning of the season, and then they tied Ohio State, like I mentioned earlier. I think Arizona State, they're going to have to come out with the same mentality that they did against SNU, SNH, and know that these aren't going to be given games. And I think against Southern New Hampshire, they kind of were games that they knew they were going to win, and they have to simply have the right mindset. And it's been a while since they've played a ranked opponent. They had Ohio State a couple weeks ago, and the next 2 opponents, they're going to be ranked. It's going to be tough. I think they can pull out a win in one of the 4 games, but It's tough to say because Robbie Belargian, the team's leading scorer, he hasn't scored in a while. Thankfully, Robert Levin, like Ethan mentioned, has been stepping up, and I think that's going to be huge in keeping the score a little lower than it has been in past games.
So, Ethan, Nick just touched on this tough schedule coming up, but tell me more about their next opponent, Quinnipiac.
Yeah, the Sun Devils will travel to Hamden, Connecticut to take on, Nick mentioned, number 17 Quinnipiac. It's more traveling for the Sun Devils. The hockey team's done a ton of it this season, one of the most traveled teams in the NCAA. Quinnipiac, number 17 ranked team in the country, is 13-10-2 on the season. They played similar opponents to ASU, and they're actually averaging similar goals per game average, around 3 goals per game, both teams. So the offenses are very similar. They have 3 players tied for 18 points for the team highs, and their leading goal scorer is senior forward Tim Clifton. So Quinnipiac struggling this year, but they're still ranked because they play a bunch of tough teams as well, and they obviously have a winning record. So it'll be interesting to see how the Sun Devils compete. I'm sure they have a lot of momentum coming off. Nick mentioned the game that they tied against Ohio State, and then to come in this weekend back at home and get a sweep, that's huge for them. I think moving forward, they just keep playing offense and keep getting those shots on goal, and they'll get lucky tips, big goals from the players that are really trying to score. And I'm sure you guys touched on it. I'm sure Belargian's gonna get cranked back up soon. They just kind of took it easy on him after his injury that he sustained in the first game, and he kind of took it easy in the second game. I would look to see Robbie really turn it on here toward the end of the season, since it is his last college season.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me, and here's hoping that the hockey team only gets hotter from here. The Arizona State football team is in the news again. They recently hired a new defensive coordinator in Phil Bennett, and then they lost their offensive coordinator in Chip Lindsey to Auburn. We now bring in Sam Fakar to discuss with me the recent changes to the coaching staff. So, Sam, Phil Bennett, former defensive coordinator at Baylor, tons of experience. Good or bad hire in your opinion?
Like, it's a good hire. It definitely fits the system ASU likes to run. Baylor is very similar to ASU. They are very opportunistic. They like to blitz a lot. So that'll be something that definitely fits with Todd Graham, even though he kind of took a step back on the blitzing. But it will be interesting. Baylor's defense has never been that great either. They've had some good NFL players come out, but it's still live or die by the deep ball, sort of like for the offense. So, the Big 12 is not known for their defenses. They're known for their offenses. So it'll be interesting to see how they change under Bennett, because the only way they could go up, the only way they can go is up, because ASU's defense was the second worst in FBS last season.
All right, so then with Chip Lindsey leaving, obviously this upcoming season will be the 3rd straight season that there will be a new offensive coordinator. Are you concerned about what this means for the offense?
Yeah, it depends. I've seen some word that ASU might just stay in-house. They might just promote one of their position coaches of it. So in that, you would be able to keep some continuity among the group, but a lot of people weren't happy with ASU's offense last season because they struggled as the quarterbacks went down one by one. So it just depends. I feel like ASU's offense they still have a lot of playmakers. Most of them are coming back next season. Nikhil Harry will look to take the next step as a sophomore next season. So I think that's something to look forward to. And they will still have the 2-headed monster in the backfield and Richard and Balazs. So I don't think it really just depends on what hire Graham decides to make.
All right, and then finally, there is now only one remaining coach from Todd Graham's original staff that he brought in back in 2012. What does all this turnover say about Todd Graham and the ASU football program?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of it is his coach is going up to better things. Some of it's because of performance at ASU. I know it does seem strange that Patterson's the only one left, considering the defense was so bad last year, and he is still on his staff. It's kind of ironic, but Michael Norvell got a head coach job at Memphis, so you can't fault them. Chip Lindsey, even though he went to Auburn, I know Auburn was in the Sugar Bowl this year, even though they kind of gained steam late at the season. So you can't really fault it. That's a better job on paper to get an SEC offensive coordinator job. And we were talking, you always said, a head coach. He wants to be a head coach, and Auburn will be a better launch pad for him than ASU would ever be.
All right, Sam. Well, thank you, and we'll have to see who Todd Graham finds to be his third offensive coordinator in as many seasons. Well, that's our show. Thank you for joining us, and you can keep up with everyone that appeared on the show today by reading their articles on devilsindetail.com. You can keep up to date with everything Arizona State athletics by following Devils in Detail on Twitter at Devils_detail. Make sure to subscribe to the Devils in Detail YouTube page to be notified about all of our videos, including roundtable discussions about your favorite Arizona State sports. Thank you for joining us, and from everyone here in Phoenix, I'm Hunter Robinson saying we hope to see you again soon.